From a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Fernay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Fernay.
It's the Maryland Crabs. We're here on a beautiful 95-degree day in the middle of February.
We are, and it's Thursday, so it must be time for a podcast.
Oh, good thing that explains these microphones, I imagine. Yeah,
it would be. Speaking of which, make sure you follow us on all the right places. Facebook, The Maryland Crabs. We've got a page and a group. Send us emails at info@themarylandcrabs.com and go to our website. You can catch all the past episodes right there. You can leave comments and everything else. And most importantly, go to iTunes, go to Google Play, iHeartRadio. You're supposed to look into Spotify, aren't you?
I'm supposed to do a lot of things, John.
Yeah, well, I don't leave your wife out of this, okay?
I do not do I don't like to be told what to do.
But soon, hopefully, to be on Spotify as well. But go to any of those places. Make sure you find us, give us a rating, and if you feel so inclined, leave us a review.
A great review.
Well, yeah, a great review.
Break out the thesaurus and everything.
Last week we had a great conversation.
Splendiferous. It is a splendiferous podcast.
That's it.
It's not a real word.
Splendiferous.
You're a spelling bee nerd.
There it is. Last week we had a great conversation with Chase Cook from the Capitol.
And who's this guy across from us right now? He just showed up at the table.
Yeah, and this time we're going to speak with, and we a repeat guest. I think he's our first repeater, isn't he?
You are.
Yes. This would be Gavin Buckley. And the last time we talked about him, he was the man about town with the idea for the arts and everything else. And he was going to run for mayor, and he had filed, but he hadn't quite launched the campaign. And we promised to come back and talk to him. And here we are. Now it's February. No, it's March.
No, it's February.
Well, it's February, but
it feels like June.
Yeah. Yeah, so
it's a beautiful day, and by the time you're listening to this, it's going to be huddled around the fire, most likely. But it's absolutely spectacular. And we are at 49 West, by the way, so that explains all the clinking and clanking.
That's right. I wish you could smell how good it smells here, though.
It's not John. The clinking and clanking that you usually hear is John's dog, but the dog is not allowed in this restaurant.
So it's the kitchen, but it smells really good here.
John's house does not smell really
good. Lunch, yeah. No, my weird smells. But anyhow, Gavin, thank you very much for coming back. We appreciate it.
So I'm happy to be here. I had a great time on the show last time. Thank you so much.
I know. Well, that was $20 well spent. But so what's happened since you've gone? Okay, last time. Let's update us a little bit on the arts and stuff like that. Where do you stand? I mean, last time you were fighting in City Hall or historic preservation on the mural.
Yep.
And you had all sorts of ideas.
Explain more for people who did not hear the last episode. Why don't you explain the mural again?
Gavin woke up one day last summer, 2 summers ago, and said, what can I do to piss off the city?
That's how I approached my marriage.
And Jeff Huntington came down and said, hey, I've got the perfect idea. If you need somebody to piss off the city, I am your man. And Gavin said, well, let's rent a bucket, and we'll spray paint the front of Tsunami with a really cool mural. Not quite
exactly
that
like that.
But
no, they tell the real story. The real story is
we know facts are just really pointing.
The city gave Ron Hollander a citation for some issues that he needed to fix on some of his buildings. His lawyer said to the city, if you're going to give me a citation, what about everybody else? It's not fair you just single out one person. City, in their wisdom, decided to issue, let's say, 100 citations. And the day I got mine, it's like something when you've got to fix something on your house. You know you've got to do it, but it's the last thing you do because it's your house. So we knew we had to paint our building, but I stood out front of the building with a citation in my hand. I looked across the road at the State Building. I drove past my favourite peeling paint building, the City Public Works building. And
the State House. Not the State House, but the...
And then I just thought, well, I guess Jeff's available this weekend, and they're closing the street down for the first Sunday Arts Festival. So, and someone I knew could give me a free bucket truck. So the stars aligned, and it wasn't a conspiracy. It just happened in about 4 or 5 days, but it certainly turned into a big issue. And it's been a bit of a motivation for me to run, because I feel like we close our minds to new ideas. You can look around the country at cities that have transformed themselves through art and food and things like that, and they embrace a muralist like Jeff Huntington. He is. We're so lucky that he's chosen this town to be in. And so I think that instead of fighting against us and taking us to court next month, the city should be working with us. You know, there wasn't a process in place. Painting has never been considered an alteration. And so now they're trying to say that, and so we don't believe that. We have one disagreement with the city. We're on, you know, we love Annapolis. We love the historic district. We love the historic fabric of the town. Artists are respectful of that. No artists I know would graffiti a beautiful historic building. Jeff's piece is an amazing piece, and we're lucky to have it.
It really is, and that's still stuck in court at this point, right? I mean, it's the mural. If you haven't seen the mural, definitely drive down West Street and take a look at it. It is impressive. It's takes up the whole facade of Tsunami, which is it's like 3 storefronts, 3 or 4,
50 by 30, some 50 by 20. You know.
It really impressive. It looks across West Street over into, I guess, 60 West, which is the big brick building that's big ugly brick building that's.
Architectural gem,
equally non-historic, but it's very impressive. And there's a court case that's pending on that in the Court of Appeals.
Yes,
and that's when March.
Yeah, it's
April?
been delayed. They keep delaying it, which costs money every time.
Sure.
So I say the beauty of this is, I think it is. Yeah, the beauty of it is, I'm getting prosecuted with my taxpaying dollars, and I get to defend myself with some other dollars. It's just a win-win.
You're
quite the businessman.
You got to rethink that whole business plan there. That's that's funny. But what else is new in the art enemy? And you're one of the go-to people. There's several that have worked together to bring West Street alive with arts. We've got Dinner Under the Stars, which I'm assuming is happening again this summer.
Yep, it's going to be bigger this year.
And you're the guy, one of the guys that puts everything together. What else is happening in the arts around Annapolis that you can?
We extended the Christmas lights this year 5 blocks long,
which looks awesome.
Which I think which was the catalyst for the Dining Under the Stars. We raised money 2 Christmases ago to light the first block with Christmas lights. Then we repurposed them for Dining Under the Stars, which was a huge hit for the street and for the city. I think it gives you an example of what happens if you build community, if you build a town centre for locals. People come, and so we have people lined up to get a seat in 100-degree heat just to sit outside on a closed down.
I was one of them. It was awesome.
That's not a formal organization that you have. That's just a bunch of you who got together to do this, right?
It's the West Street. It's a West Street Association, which is a resident and business association combined, and it takes a few hard-working volunteers, and then also the Arts District. They run simultaneously.
So this is we've talked about. We beat this to death, obviously, and people are going to roll their eyes right now. But we talked about the business community. We talked about the ABA disappearing, and this is what I was involved in the ABA for years, and this is to me what I wanted the ABA to do, and I loved it. I loved the people involved in it, and I loved everything. But this is a great example of, when government. And I'm not anti-government, but I am anti-government involved in business. But when government's not involved, things happen. These if you look at what you guys have done up there, it is pretty amazing. It's just, I wish we could extend that down Main Street too, like for Midnight Madness. We have that Snowflake Alley, which is great, but what else you got? Because let's keep going with that. But it's just showing when you guys just take the bull by the horns and act on your own. This is what happens.
Yeah.
What we do is first of all, our first rule is don't ask the city for money, because that will slow you down. And the city have been great. They've worked with us on all the projects.
Permitting and...
Yeah, and so we've had no issues, and they've got out of the way, and been a great partner.
I've said it before on the Fringe Festival.
Yep.
One of my favorite events, and it actually was the very first year when you did it, and it was stretched from Maryland Hall all the way down.
It was an ambitious plan, but we've always tried to connect the first block of West Street with Maryland Hall. That's the whole idea of the Arts District.
You really have, and the Fringe Fest was just one of my favorites, and I love that police, and I'll probably get them in trouble, but kind of look the other way.
Good job. Piss off the cops, John.
You'll see people walking in the street with a glass of beer or with a cocktail.
Not from one of my restaurants.
No, not there. No, not Gavin's, John.
But the police would see that. Dinner Under the Stars, you can drink out in the street. There's obviously some sort of a permit for that. But it was really, really very cool to see that, and to see kids as little as mid-calf to grannies and walkers just enjoying. And I ran into the car.
What a bizarre measurement system.
Mid-calf to grannies and walkers. But I ran into the car that was spray painted 2 years ago.
All right.
He lives in town,
Right.
and I was like, I know this car. Actually, I helped paint this car.
Awesome.
And he's like, really? And I pull out my phone, and he's like, he says, can you send me these? Because I don't know how the hell he got it, but it was pretty funny. But I mean, we've got Chocolate Binge Festival.
Huge. That was our most successful event. We raised $30,000 in sponsorship for that because it was for Christmas lights and for the festival. We generated, probably $5,000 to $10,000 on the day of just people donating to the Arts District, and then all the vendors that came to that event, they all sold out. So it was a huge. And then at the end of it, we had a guy dressed as Willy Wonka. We got the mayor to pull the lever, and the lights. We lit up 5 blocks of West Street, and then this guy dressed as Willy Wonka sung the Imagination song. So it was a beautiful moment. It was really great.
That's when you say you raise like $30,000 or so, and that gets put back into the arts program or the vitalization, vitality of West Street.
Yeah, every dollar we don't pay any. There's no offices. There's nothing. Every dollar we make, every dollar we raise, we put back into the Arts District. We put it back into chickens or banners or
advertising
or lights.
Or
or we pay artists with it. We pay musicians at our different events,
as they should be paid.
Always gets put back into the community, and that and a lot of volunteerism, and that's been the strength of West Street. We've always believed in synergy. We've always worked together we haven't felt threatened by another restaurant or bar coming. We've felt like we could help them, and that's been about diversity too. As long as the food and concepts are diverse and different, and the arts are different, we've always tried to strive for that.
You guys have a good model going right now that I'd like to see kind of adopted by like Maryland Ave and West Annapolis. Main Street gets their own attention, but these are areas that I think traditionally have been underserved by when it comes to, or not underserved, but undervisited when it comes to locals. But what you guys have been doing over the last 3 years is pretty amazing. So I would hope that those areas kind of take note of that.
I did a presentation on Maryland Ave the other day, and I've got some great ideas for Maryland Ave.
I've talked to the vendors over there. Maryland Ave is fantastic, but I think that they have their own set of problems that they're tucked aside. And I've heard the people over there, the business owners, they've all kind of expressed a sort of, not resentment, but they feel like they're ignored by the city, ignored by residents, and they have their own set of issues. But they also have a beautiful setting over there that would just be really conducive of what you guys are doing over on West Street.
Maryland Ave is also the gateway to the Naval Academy too. When you get off of King George or Prince George or whatever street that is down there that goes into Gate 1, you've got the pedestrian gate straight at the end.
They had a St. Patrick's Day thing one year, didn't they? Or they had some sort of festival. They closed the street down.
They need a couple of defining festivals. I gave 10 big ideas to the street the other day, and I think that we can turn Maryland Ave around and get people to the street. One of the ideas I have is a thing called the Crosstown Flyer. It goes from Gate 3 of the Academy, it goes to Maryland Ave, it goes to St. John, then it goes to West Street, and this is the one that's going to lose me the election. It goes up and down Main Street in a dedicated bike and trolley lane. So you have to have, for it to be a flyer, you have to have dedicated lanes, or some portion of the route has to be dedicated just for a trolley, a soft-wheel trolley, and some portion has to, and then you can double it up as a bike lane. If I become mayor, there's going to be city bike things all over the city. You can, like you see in DC and Baltimore, you can go and put a credit card in and use a bike and pick one up in Eastport.
I love those
and ride
things.
it to West Annapolis.
I saw those down in DC. They're amazing. What's it called? It's called I
want to jump back into the arts thing real quick. And I had a meeting the other week with Ben Eisenberg.
Yes.
From Symmetry.
Yes.
And he was telling me some stuff. Can you let any of that cat out of the bag yet, or?
About the festival?
About Arts Festival?
Yeah, great. He's trying to do a 4 or 5-day event, 6-day event that, for me, connecting us to the stadium, connecting us to Maryland Hall is so important, and so he's got some cool kids that work for him, so I think he'll bring some great flavour to that event,
And this is in early June, I believe.
Yeah, I haven't got all the details, so...
Yeah, and what he told me they're looking to do is to start off, it'll be an Arts Week in Annapolis, and they're looking to kick it off with First Sunday Arts, which is just a wonderful first Sunday of every month.
Yep.
Gets underway in May?
May is the first one,
But the first Sunday of every month, it's noon to 6 o'clock. Vendors just line the street, the first block of West Street, but it is now extended down.
Which makes it great.
Beyond the Lowe's, which is really nice. And it's going to kick off with that. There's going to be 2 or 3 events throughout the week that'll be smaller. And then it will wrap up at the end with the Art and Wine Festival, which will be at the Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium. Yeah. So it'll be an entire week of this. And this is very much a similar throwback to what Jimmy Davies and I talked about probably 3 or 4 years ago at the film festival. Yeah. Said he would love to have like an arts month where you've got the Fringe Festival and you've got the Film Festival and you've got all of these things, arts, and Annapolis gets on the book worldwide for like a big arts destination. But I think that's a really good step. And I mean, Ben and his team at Symmetry are real good. He's worked with the CVB or the Visit Annapolis. They don't like to be called the CVB anymore. And I think that's really exciting. I think to see where that's going to go, and it'll be a new big draw for the city.
Well, the core to everything's going to be events. I mean, events-based marketing is for, we're not, you have to go out of your way to get to Annapolis. It's a day trip, especially if you're in D.C. or Baltimore. I mean, I grew up in Bethesda, and we never came to Annapolis because it was a hard trip. So if you have to have a very compelling reason to come here.
But I believe we should be the best side trip you can do from Washington, D.C., the best side trip you can do from Baltimore. And we need to make it
Don't stop there. Go to Philadelphia, too. It's only 2 hours away. I mean, seriously. I mean, I go up to Philadelphia for a cheesesteak.
Yep. I say people
they have
from
Pips,
DC.
Don't tell Pips. They're not that good. Sorry, Ryan.
They're awesome. They're the best in town.
They are.
You Philadelphia
But they're not. They're just something that's missing. And I think it's because they don't have half a cow sitting
Ryan, I love
on
your
the
cheesesteaks. Don't spit in mine. Spit in his, and you're well within your rights to do so. They're awesome. Anywho.
But
Well, I say this about the side trips. You should want to come from Washington, D.C., get on a paddleboard at Spa Creek, paddle up to Pussers, and have a painkiller. That should be a thing. We should be a water sports destination. We should be fighting to make Spa Creek pristine and Weems.
Now, we're talking like sports out on the water. We're not talking any kind of Trump things going on here.
No. My joke is
that was the time lag between the two.
I'm not afraid of a shower. No. But definitely, like, Spa Creek should be a great place to go, And so I have mooring in Spa Creek, and I think I made this joke last time. And I'm at the mooring. My kids will be swimming out there, and I'll be swimming out there, and then people will be standing on the shore going, "Don't get in that water," And I say, "I'm from Australia. Flesh-eating sharks or flesh-eating bacteria, same statistical risk, But we should fight for it to make it clean. And there's cities that are way worse, have start from a way worse base than we have, and they turn their rivers and their waterways around. We should be. I say the more of us had to get in the water, the more of us will take care of the water.
Probably need to take a quick break here. Let me get a refill on my ASG.
I thought I said something wrong. You just cleared it, man. No. We have to have a signal where you don't look at me like my dad. I just rolled in drunk from curfew. Apparently, folks, we're going to take our first break now so that John can curb his attitude a little bit, and we'll come back. And I want to talk about the differences between the candidates, because we've spoken with you, we've spoken with John Astle, and we've spoken with Mike Pantelides. So I think everyone has at least got the beginnings of their campaigns and their platforms. So let's get into that a little bit.
I'll get my iced tea. Gavin can change his hat from arts director to
politician.
We'll be right back.
Great.
When a ring from the United States Naval Academy comes into Zachary's for a center stone, it always makes us wonder, where's this one going? Where's this one been? A nuclear sub in the North Atlantic? A carrier deck in the South Pacific? The moon? 52 astronauts are Academy graduates, from Iwo Jima to Okinawa, Corregidor to the Coral Sea, Midway to the Persian Gulf, Congress to the White House. These rings go where America goes. 73 that went to war were awarded the Medal of Honor. But wherever they go, wherever they may serve, our admiration goes with them.
Zachary's. Online at zacharysjewelers.com. More than a jewelry store, a jeweler.
Very few things in life are so precious and so irreplaceable that we all must do our part to protect them. The Chesapeake Bay is one of those things. You can do your part by contributing to the Chesapeake Bay and Endangered Species Fund. It's that little line item you'll see at the very end of your Maryland tax return. Any amount you give makes a difference, and it's tax deductible. I'm Peter Francho, Maryland Comptroller. Our bay and rivers thank you. Learn more about the Chesapeake Bay Trust at cbtrust.org.
And we're back. John's got his iced tea, Gavin's got his coffee, and I ain't got nothing.
And Gavin put a new hat on.
We got a new hat. Yep, switched hats, actually. So now we are talking to candidate Gavin.
Yes.
Hi, candidate Gavin.
G'day.
Hello. So, like I said, we had some talks with. So we talked to Senator Astle a couple weeks ago, or about a month ago, and then a couple weeks ago we talked to Mike Pantelides, current.
Well, we talked to him as the mayor, and we're going to be talking with him
as candidate
shortly.
Right, and we'll probably be talking to Gavin again as we get closer to the election, and we're going to talk to everybody again. And we have some other politicos who are coming in who are running for this and that. And we're going to have them on. So we're going
to do a debate.
Yeah, we're going to do a debate. Not just us next time. We're just you and I argue. But so when we talked to Mike Pantelides as mayor, he just kind of went through everything you've seen in the papers. That a lot of the things that he accomplished were, in all fairness, were laid out by previous administrations, as happens. There's nothing unusual with that. But that's easy to kind of say, okay, this happened under our administration. On the other hand, you have Senator Astle who's saying, well, wait a minute, the infrastructure of the town is crumbling.
He cited Main Street.
Right,
with the
big ruts that are going down the middle, etc. So we have, and frankly, I think he said this in the interview. So we're not telling tales out of school so much as his biggest obstacle to overcome is going to be the fact that he's perceived as an establishment candidate. That is to say, he's been in office since like 1900. So he's been there for a long time. That comes with a lot of strengths because you know how the system works, you know how government works. It comes with a lot of weaknesses because you're connected to people that are perceived as pulling strings or making decisions. It's the whole swamp that President Trump talks about, and the current mayor has a lot of issues in that he's got a couple of large things on his plate. Crystal Spring is one that can't get kicked down the road very much longer. Crime is certainly an issue, and he's taken
and a lot of serious vacancies in his administration.
Right. So my concern as a non-resident, I'm a pseudo-resident in that I live south of the city, but my concern is I look and see that
Kenya, right?
Kenya what? But you can see that most of the attention and effort from the mayor and the council goes to Ward 1 issues and downtown issues. You seem to be very business-oriented, which we have not had in a candidate in a long time. As a matter of fact, some of the mayors that we've had have been strictly considered anti-business for the most part, and I would certainly put Mayor Moyer into that category. I mean, that's, again, painting with a broad brush.
I'd probably put Mayor Cohen in that, not solidly, but leaning toward that. He knew where his bread was buttered. Obviously, he just didn't butter it enough before.
Well, yeah, I guess, but I mean, so we have in you a candidate I don't think we've seen before. Is that someone who is business oriented and who looks at the whole city as saying, I want to revitalize the city as a destination. You're looking at this as a businessman. No, I'm not. But whereas the other two candidates tend to be more traditional.
Yeah, I think that nothing happens without economic vitality. You have to have cash flow, so we have to make the city work, and we have to make the city. My big thing is we have to broaden the base of people that are attracted here. So we need, I always say younger people, but not just younger people, but younger people would be a great start that want to live here and want to start businesses here and are able to live here. So we have to structure it so we get mixed income housing, we get things that we make it dynamic enough that they think this is a good place to start a business. If you don't have to look very far, Austins, Boulders, Charlestons, Asheville's, Burlingtons, these cities that are driven culturally, that have come up with new ideas, that have events that are oriented to the locals, but have big picture things, that they make your town exciting. And then we need to make the town exciting, and we need to attract more different businesses. I think we should be striving to be a gastronomic destination. We should be striving to be an arts destination.
It's funny. I want a town that I love, and I will say that I'm not. I appreciate the arts, but I'm not necessarily an arts.
You're not
guy.
a culture vulture.
Yeah. I'm not oohing and eyeing over everything, but I certainly appreciate it. But Asheville, North Carolina, phenomenal food, phenomenal arts. They've got a thing. They had a burned out building very similar to what we had on Main Street, and they boarded it up and painted it with chalk paint. And every day they have somebody from the homeless shelter come down, wipe it down, and they get paid and replenish the chalk. And it's got one of those sayings, if I was king of the world, I would do blank, and you could fill in whatever it was, or before I die I want to. which they have at a lot of festivals. And I thought that was just so awesome. Here, while this business is going through whatever they're going through to get re-permitted to build, the city has taken it upon themselves to make it not quite an eyesore.
You know what's funny that you just mentioned as you rattled off those cities, Gavin, is it just struck me. Those are all liberal cities. They all can be considered liberal cities. And that's interesting to me that if you look at, I'm just talking out loud here, if you look at that liberal cities would be somewhat antithetical to businesses because pro-business positions are generally a conservative or at least a Republican value. Yet the cities that have reinvented themselves in the way that you said, and arguably those are all relatively new inventions over the last 10 years, those are all without exception liberal cities. I wonder why that is. I mean, we're not a liberal city. I always said, we talked about this last time, we're a conservative city in so much as residents don't want things to change. They dislike the city as the way it is. But when you're talking about your traditional liberal progressive cities, I don't know if we would fall into that. But it's strange to me that all those cities that reinvented themselves are fairly to exceedingly liberal places. I can't think of any conservative towns that do that. I don't know why that is.
I mean, I feel like we have all the pieces to be as good as any of those cities or better with our own flavour, but we just need to be pushed in that direction, you know. And so I guess you could say they're liberal cities. But what's great about those cities is the people that are from them will die for their city, you know. We have a city where we love our city, but people don't go the extra yard for it because they don't feel the love back sometimes. And I think that if you build community, you build a great community, people will give more, they'll volunteer more, they'll do more, they'll put up with more, whatever it is. But you have to build that community to make your city great.
I think sometimes when you live in the city and it's sort of like when you live in your house and you have a light bulb out, that you stop noticing it after a while. So you don't see what's wrong, you don't see what you need to fix. But I'm on Reddit, John's on Reddit. It's a great place online. I think it's the number 10 website, most visited in the country. So you get people who have questions from outside the city all the time. Well, they say, hey, I'm moving to Annapolis. Where should I live? That was today.
Yep.
And there was one the other
one
day
looking for brew pubs.
Yeah, one looking for brew pubs. One
go someplace else.
Do it on West Street.
and one was looking for. They're saying, hey, we're making day trips. What should we do? And it was funny. It was the people, because Reddit's a pretty helpful community, and people were giving them all these suggestions of things to do, and a lot of the things I hadn't thought about. And I lived here. John always talks about being a tourist in your own town and what have you. But I mean, that's kind of what I hear from you. Is I don't hear that from the other traditional candidates. Is I'd say your strengths would be, and I even your opponents would have said that off mic, but saying he's an ideas guy. He's got these broad ideas and he's got these specific ideas rather as to the arts and how to move business. But they think that can conflict with the day-to-day running of the city. I mean, do you feel that sometimes would you categorize yourself as like, say, hey, I'm a dreamer, but yeah. Can you put pencil to paper and make the things you say happen? You've already demonstrated you can on West Street. Could you do that in an administrative way?
My first ever business was a coffee shop in the town. It was before there was a Starbucks in Washington, D.C. or a Starbucks in Baltimore. And it was behind Middleton's Tavern. It was called The Moon. And my wife bought me a card, and we had this saying put on the wall, and it's yes, I am a dreamer. For a dreamer makes his way by moonlight and sees the dawn before the rest of the world. And I've forgotten who said that. but
Gavin said that.
Abraham Lincoln.
Gavin's wife said that.
And so, I think that, what's what I love about the town is, there's so much more that we can do, So I think that's what's great about doing our businesses on West Street. When we came here, no one really cared about West Street, so we could do different things out there. And we've always tried to do businesses that are not, we haven't tried to do Irish bars or sports bars because they're already here. We've done businesses for locals.
I want to point out there's not a darn T-shirt shop on West Street.
We need more of those.
I can't buy a T-shirt on West Street. I don't think. Maybe at the visitor center, perhaps. I don't know. But I mean, we've got a variety of businesses here. And one of the I don't want to say a criticism, but one of the things I might say to you is that we've had a businessman run for mayor as an independent, and Chris Fox, and that was against Mayor Cohen, and he was an independent, so he was sort of a spoiler to a degree. And he was running because he was pissed off, pretty much with the hassle of how he did it. You're different from that. I mean, okay, you might be pissed off on that, but okay, you've been in town for 20
Yeah, nearly 25 years.
Okay, and a business owner for nearly all of them.
Yep.
The businesses are growing every time you turn your head. There's another, Buckley Danik venture opening up. And you've been involved in the community. It's not just, you've not been isolated into Tsunami Metropolitan Lemongrass, and here he is just working within the confines of that. And I think that may be something that we're looking at. You're a resident of Ward 1?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. So you've got your finger on the pulse of Ward 1, which is an important thing to consider going into the election. I mean, I don't know that they're necessarily the ones that are going to be responsible for electing the next mayor.
They traditionally have been.
But they traditionally have been. What is your platform now? I mean, I know the last time we talked, you were sort of putting it all together, and I know you've been out walking the streets.
I've been doing knocking.
And I'll put that knocking on the doors. I guess I shouldn't say walking the streets. We got rid of that problem about a decade ago. Okay? We're not bringing that back.
West Street, red light district to arts district.
You don't have to turn on that red light. Yeah, walk that street for money. He don't care if it's wrong or right. So you're starting to solidify your platform.
Yeah.
Your website's about to go up. Twitter's you're about to launch all those things right now.
We've got a campaign manager out of Frederick who, as a young kid, who was got him excited by Obama and got in the game from that, but you look at Frederick. Frederick has turned around as a city that we called Fredneck is now a food destination. It's now an arts destination. So
there are some kick-ass restaurants up there, man.
So if you can turn a town like that around, surely we have so much more going for us.
That's so bizarre to me because I grew up in Montgomery County in the 70s and 80s, and I think we talked about this last time as well. Is that we did call it Fredneck, and it was if you were going north, you had to go through Frederick for a minute, and it was incredibly it was rustic. We went from like the metropolitan area of D.C. within 20 minutes. You were going through farmlands and people wearing flannel, and like now, it's amazing. It's nothing short of spectacular. In probably 15 years, the sort of renaissance that they've gone through, not just with the restaurants and the businesses, but they've become a firm bedroom community. They've become that's not just like I think Montgomery Village and Germantown in Montgomery County has been a compromise for people who want to live in Bethesda and Rockville and Chevy Chase, but they can't afford it, so they have to live in those areas so they can afford it. Whereas Frederick's not that. Frederick is a destination where it's small town living in a bedroom community of a major metropolitan area, and that makes me think, why can't we have that? I mean, we have a head start too. They started from zero.
We've got so much more than those places, and I think
we get the water. They still have cornfields.
It's great. We live in a great place. It's like a holiday resort here. I think we're so lucky. I feel so lucky to have landed here, but I just think there's a lot more that we could do. So
what's the impediment to that?
So I think we have to. We just need some new ideas. We need some new ideas downtown, and so there's probably a handful of people that don't want any change. The only idea of good change is no change. And I think that you have to evolve as a city. You have to reinvent yourselves every now and then. Of course, the historic district is a priority. We have to make sure that we preserve all the fabric and scale that we have. That's got to be our number one priority. But that stuff should just be a backdrop for a bunch of cool stuff, And so I think we made a lot of stuff happen out on West Street where we had none of those advantages. And I say there are less vacancies on West Street now than there are on Main Street. I have a lot of ideas to revitalise Main Street and downtown. I have a lot of ideas to connect our neighbourhoods. But the base of my platform is if we had built a downtown for locals, we would have better shopping and better restaurants, and tourists would still come because tourists want to go where locals go. They want to do what locals do. We don't have a trace of a crabber downtown. We don't have a trace of an oysterman. So you look in the New England towns, you can feel that stuff has happened in these towns. But our town, I don't know what we did to it, but it's like a bad version of Ocean City or something.
But that's what kills me, is that we are in the heart of the Chesapeake Bay here. Annapolis is the capital of Maryland, but it's the capital of the Chesapeake Bay. We don't have any crab houses in town.
Yeah.
No, we don't. And Buddy's, I'm sorry, Buddy's isn't, no offense to Mr. Blounder, but that's not a real crab house. If someone comes in, they said, where do we go for crabs? It's embarrassing. We don't have a single crab house in town. I don't even think Cantlers is in town.
Mike's and Cantlers. Cantlers is in the county. Both are in the county.
And Phillips went here. Those weren't real crabs. That was like Indonesian crab. That's screw Phillips.
One of my fixes would be for the market house would be an end user like Annapolis seafood, because at least it'd be something real, something like seafood. A Pike's Market.
They tried that. I think Ellen. I think that was in one of Ellen Moyer's visions to bring them.
Yeah, but there's a lot of. But in all honesty, there's a lot of flailing about at that point where they were trying to get something in there, anything in there, because I think they were under pressure from the governor's office. That was the rumor. Who was tired of reading the local paper and seeing this mess go on under his nose. But I mean, I kind of like that idea because that is one of my largest laments in this town is that if we want crabs to get crabs, we have to go over to Mike's over on Riva, which are excellent, but it's well outside the city. I mean, that's that's like a 10-mile drive.
It'd be nice if you could get on a water taxi or a ferry and go to a place and get crabs from the heart of the city that we're supposed to be famous for crabs.
Yeah, to put it into John's terms, it's like going to Philly and not having a single place that says serves a cheesesteak in town. That's where we are with this.
Well, you talk about not doing things that the locals do, and I know that the Schooner Woodwind does a pretty good job of that, and they say, hey, this is where the boaters hang out at the boatyard. Here's a coupon. Go have a dark and stormy or whatever it is. But I think that when I go traveling, one of the first things I do is I'll get off, if I'm on a cruise or if I fly in, I'll get a cabbie. And I'll say, okay, give me 4 hours. What's it going to cost me for 4 hours? I mean, usually it's an island or something like that, or a guide, and just take me around. I don't want. And on your left is the Vatican, and on your right is, take me around, take me to someplace cool. And
you go see the Vatican's pretty cool in defense.
It is if you're a Catholic. If you're into that whole Pope thing, but
we're not hanging out. I mean, that's.
Yeah, no, but I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's what do you do when you come here? I mean, we've got a few signs, which I'll give credit to Mayor Pantelides for getting that grant.
Yeah, they look great.
They're looking very good around town. I walked here today, so I saw a bunch of them up Duke of Gloucester Street and whatnot on how to directional signing, which happens. But yeah, we need something to make it a destination. Where do the locals go?
I've got an idea. It's called the 4th Street Ferry, and it just runs on Saturday and Sunday from the Sailing Hall of Fame location to 4th Street, because I believe like Davis's and the Boatyard, they're real locals kind of bars.
On the back side, on the back creek side.
So so you could just, that 4th Street corridor would connect you to Back Creek, connects you to Spa Creek, and that should be, we should do something with that.
Would it go across Spa Creek, or would it go around back to the Davis' side?
We just go across, back and forwards, on the hour, So
I can be honest with you, that when you talk about the locals, having like in your transit system,
it's free. Yeah.
But having a transit system that is boat oriented, like so you had something coming to Back Creek, like all the way back to like off Edgewood. So if you're local and you don't want to deal with the downtown parking, that you could actually just like catching a bus.
The water taxi does that. The water taxi goes all the way up Back Creek. The schedule's not the most convenient. I've taken it into town a couple times when I know I'm going to get tanked up. Provided that I don't stay out too late, because it doesn't run that late.
It charges now,
and it is expensive, but it's worth it. I mean, and the other thing that
you need a boat version of Uber.
Do you know what else that they used to offer and they don't do it anymore? But Watergate Apartments, free water taxi used to come with the rent.
Oh wow,
that's incredible.
And that was, and I don't know whether they still do it, but it's, I mean, that was tremendous. You get out of your apartment. I never lived there, but you get out of your apartment, go down to the dock, and off you go.
All right, so we had, and you got tons of ideas, and all of them are pretty original. So, being that we live in a conservative town, and again, that's people don't like change, and they shy away from that. Let's study this to death. I mean, how many downtown studies have we had? How do you actuate these ideas? How do you make them happen?
Well, I think I have the ability to get people around the table and get people to talk to one another, because I don't think that our ideas are that far apart. So I think I think people appreciate a good idea. I mean, I would say, I've got decent support at Ward 1. They might disagree with some things on the mural. I go to Eastport and I talk to the community associations there, and I feel like I've got good support on those things. I think people just want good ideas, I don't think they're going to stop them happening. I think we have to take a look at our city permit process, and we have to, change the culture. I think that we have the worst reputation on that front. So one of the ideas I have is that we put the permit office on Main Street and put the conference table right in the window, and then put a big 100-day sign in the window with a countdown, so that when you're looking in the window and someone's sitting there waiting for a permit, you can see how many days they've been waiting for.
Wow.
And then you can see them with their head in their hands when they've been told, no or something. But I think
Note
people
to
have
self,
to realize
open up a Kleenex store.
We're all in the service business, and I think that if you change the culture, if you build a good teamwork in your departments, and you help make people become part of the solution, not part of the problem, then you can move that around. But we have to do something to change our reputation. They're streamlining things in the county, but I feel like it hasn't happened here yet.
Well, I think one of the things that we talked about was with Senator Astle was, he's a take charge kind of guy. He's ex-military, and for him it's all chain of command. And one thing we talked about is that no matter what administration comes along, whether it be the Moyer, the Cohen, the Pantelides, that the problem you have is that the bureaucrats, and I'm not saying that's pejorative, I mean the people that are not elected officials who are in these positions, they don't change, and sometimes there's a culture in there of culture of no, or a culture of manana. So how do you change that? And actually, Senator Astle had a great point saying, well, I believe in these meetings once a week where you have all your department heads and you ask the tough questions. Now, having been in that, worked for someone like that before, I'll tell you, although it's ulcer-inducing when you're one of those managers, it does work. So, I mean, how do you change a bureaucracy and we have a pretty thick layer of bureaucracy here in town as a businessman, as you know.
Oh, I think that's a great idea of John's.
Right.
I don't think you get
the point. What else does John say?
All right. Well, I'll tell you, we've talked to Gavin a little bit about the arts early on in the program. Right now, we've hit a bit about his campaign. We want to talk a little bit more about this. Rumor has it that you had an announcement for us, so I want to hold off on that. We'll get to that in a minute. We're here at 49 West. I want to thank Brian Callahan very much for his hospitality again. This is a wonderful back room, wonderful place to eat and drink and listen to jazz. I would almost say close to 7 days a week. I think 5 days a week. He's got great jazz in this back room. So thank you very much for that. And when we get back, I want to ask Gavin one question. Assuming that you've won the election, somehow we got a $500 million budget, and I want to find out what he does to spend it. And we'll be right back.
Don't miss AAMC's Denim and Diamond Spash, an evening to remember with a cocktail buffet, silent auction, and dancing, all to support expanding mental health at AAMC. We need your support to help us double our county's inventory of mental health beds, allowing for the care of 900 patients a year right here in Anne Arundel County. Tickets available at aamcdenimanddiamonds.org. Special thanks to our presenting sponsors, the Chesapeake Bay Hawks, M&T Bank, and our platinum sponsors, Aerotech, AAMC medical staff, BB&T, Comcast, Homestead Gardens, Ken's Creative Kitchen, Tech Systems, What's Up Media, and 1031 WRNR.
If you don't like huge draft beer selections, don't go to Union Jack's. If you're not looking for an incredible menu and dozens of screens to catch your favorite teams, I repeat, do not go to Union Jack's. Not into darts and pool? Good. Live music not your thing? Perfect. Bottom line, if you are not interested in the best dining and bar experience in Annapolis, avoid Union Jack's. But if this all sounds totally friggin' awesome to you, visit Union Jack's in Annapolis, just across from Whole Foods in the Annapolis Town Center. Union Jack's, not your old-style pub.
And we're back, and we're all refreshed again at 49 West. We're here with Gavin Buckley, who is running for mayor of Annapolis, and we've got an election that'll be coming up in November, which is another 8 short months away. And before we left, I was going to ask Gavin one question. I said, if you won the election and you have a $500 million budget, he just fell off his chair and said, $500 million? I thought it was $100 million. But I gave him a raise to $500 million. If he's got $500 million to spend, so he's got a dream city at his feet. What is the dream city of Annapolis for Mayor Buckley?
I think the first thing I would do, and it doesn't involve money, but I would try to strike a peace deal with Eastport. I think that would be really important. We'd have a peace treaty. We'd have a big
we'll have a barge in the middle of the harbor and we
peace
sign
summit out in Camp Wabana or something like that, something serious, So once we've made peace with Eastport, I think that I love the idea of the boutique hotel at the side of what is now the
Yacht Club.
The Yacht Club. So I think help facilitate that for Harvey or whatever we have to do, because I think that we need some people living at City Dock to sort of create some energy around there. Obviously, we would do all the stuff we have to do for the rising tide. So, and I've seen a few different plans for that, but I think that's got to be the number one thing we do.
That's for the flooding downtown.
Yep. And then I think we have to look at the public housing that hasn't been rebuilt in 50 years. And so we'd have money to invest in that and rebuild it. I say the areas in public housing we have problems. We have problems because the people that live there think no one cares about them because no one's spent any money on these things for a long, long time. If you rebuild and redesign, I think we should redesign it with mixed income housing and different things that can give people hope and give people opportunity. I like the idea of the Convention Centre, Art Centre at Park Place. I think that would be a great thing. We should fund that. The town needs a convention centre. My big thing is going to be about connecting our bike paths and connecting our green spaces, connecting our neighbourhoods through bike paths and green spaces. So I'd put a lot of money into that stuff.
You're running out of money here. Okay, you're at $400,612,000. So.
I have a big Ferris wheel. That's my plan.
What about the Annapolis Eye hanging down there?
Oh, right.
So you see all the way over to Ken Island.
That was my big announcement.
Oh, damn it! Stole your thunder.
Winds are out of the sails.
But going back a little bit more into reality, you do have $100 million. You don't have $500 million if you're successful in running for your mayor.
10, you said, right?
About somewhere in there.
Well, don't shortchange them.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
you have 108, $110,000. Yeah.
If I have $100 million, what the hell is 10800? Doesn't matter to me. It's all the same. But you alluded to a big announcement. Throw it out there.
Well, it was just a bit of a joke because I think that we're not doing enough to get families downtown, and so we have to think of different ideas that get families back into our town centre. And so we can't just be bars and restaurants and things like that. So I've had articles published that talk about a spray park at City Dock, something like you see in other cities around the country.
Spray
park.
So
little water fountain.
With fountains that shoot up out of the
It comes out of the ground, so it's not a sculpture.
They had those in Chicago.
Yeah.
The big one in Chicago.
They're
awesome.
flat, so they're not sculptures, so they don't impede the boat show or anything like that, but they're just flat spray parks. And then you run across them, and what's great about these is they're great in the summer, obviously, but they're great because everyone can use them. You can be a rich kid or a poor kid. It's just something that gets and something for you to do with your grandkids or your kids when they're down at City Dock. I think obviously in the winter we should be pushing for an ice ring and a holiday market and things that get people down to the dock. But my big announcement, which is not so big anymore, is imagine a Ferris wheel downtown.
Yeah, I was just busting.
I said Ferris wheel.
And
the name for the Ferris wheel is called Eye on Annapolis.
Oh, you're so. All right. Kissing ass will get you nowhere on this one.
I could change the name if you don't like that name.
Yeah.
But I think that imagine how great it would be. So we could run it as a concession. It could be there just on a 2-year lease. You could. People would go on this Ferris wheel. They could go up, they could see the Bay Bridge, they could see Eastport, they could see West Annapolis. They could make an informed decision about where to go around the town. And I think that it wouldn't take away from our town. It doesn't take away from London. The London Eye doesn't take away from London. The Paris one doesn't take away from those cities.
How is the one performing down at National Harbor, do we know?
I know they had one.
Huh?
I didn't know they had one.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and again, same thing. It's on National Harbor in PG County, and you go up and it's beautiful at night. I've seen pictures. You see all the DC and all the monuments and everything all lit up from across.
So you put that at Susan C. Campbell Park?
Yeah.
And so, and on a 2-year lease, and then you're talking about the spray park. No, I don't want to say water park, but the spray park, like you have in Chicago and
Philadelphia, Pittsburgh have some great
Susan B.
ones.
Campbell Park. I would like to cut the deal with the Annapolis Elementary School so that we gain some parking on that side of town, and then I would like to use a couple of lanes of parking to create a green space at the dock as well.
I guarantee you that Senator Astle and Mike Pantelides do not have Ferris wheel anywhere in their campaign on their or spray park. But
what about a zip line?
But that said,
why not?
But that said, actually, when you said Ferris wheel, I just nodded dutifully. Yeah. But actually, the more I think about it, these. If you think about Susan C. Campbell Park, the end of City Dock,
destination.
You walk down, you look at the boats, and walk back.
50 by 20 as an area for it, so you don't need it could be in one lane of parking. It could be on Susan B. Campbell Park. There is a lot of room, but the main idea is things for people to do when they get downtown. What do we do when we get downtown? We have some of the historic sites which are beautiful and there, but sometimes they're not great for kids because your kids knock things over.
I know that well.
And then we have, we have limited access, I think, to the water. I mean, the ferries are good, but I think that doesn't really.
That's a good point. We don't really have a whole lot of in Annapolis. We don't have crab houses, and we don't have a lot of access to the water.
You can't get a kayak from City Dock. You can't.
That was one of the charrettes that they had a couple of years ago. That was one of the things that kept coming on. The main things were Debbie Gosselin putting sticky notes on saying, "Don't screw with the boat show," and kayak access. And they were talking at the bottom of like Green Street or Newman Street to somehow have some sort of a kayak access. I mean, as off the wall as that sounds.
Actually, I'm warming up to this.
It sounds very cool, and when you threw out a 2-year lease, how can you almost not say no if you can figure a way to fund it, because it's a test, if you will.
Yeah, all the ideas I have, like I think I have ways to fund them, and they're run as concessions, so they're not more city employees. It's a business. You created a business for someone, and they work either on tips or they work on toll.
And the city would own it and perhaps lease it out to an operator.
You could lease it and then sublease it,
to an operator.
And then if it worked, you could purchase your own, But there's a great model of one in Fremantle, where I'm from in Australia, which is a great one, I have another idea. It's
keep them coming.
It's the Crosstown Flyer and the Crosstown Flyer and the East-West Flyer.
Yeah, you had mentioned that earlier in the program.
So the one that gets you up and down around town in these free open-air trolleys. And they're run as concessions too, so we get federal transportation funds to buy the vehicles, and then we let someone run it as a business.
Now, are these the big golf cart thingies that we're talking about?
They're like, a bit bigger, like you see at the Baltimore Zoo, but like an electric version of that would be the ideal one. Like
they're people movers.
A little articulated thing where you can get 3 or 4 people in a row, but it's only 1 lane wide, and you have to give them dedicated lanes so they're efficient. So it's hard to make our public transport efficient around town because of traffic and that. So you have to make dedicated trolley lanes that are dedicated bike lanes as well. I'm very big into getting people around town on bikes and easy, free transport.
So I'm now starting to think, because if I'm listening to your platform, and a lot of them, they're big idea based. I mean, they're off the wall, kind of thinking. I hate the term outside the box, but that's where we've ended up. I'm thinking in terms of, it's not just pro business, but it's obviously making us a destination center that's not based on what we have already. Because we're a colonial city, we're the sailing capital, and all those things are fine, well and good, but nothing's new. We've been that for 50 years, and we have the tourism we do now. How do you expand upon that? So I really do like the concepts of giving us reasons for people to come out. And when you said it just now, I was thinking about, you said something about Christmas. We've confined ourselves in the city when it comes to tourism, and to the locals for the most. Well, tourism is this town's for tourists in late spring, summer, early fall, and then they disappear, and everyone and all the businesses say, where are the locals? And the locals don't come down. But I'm thinking, like in Germany, they have the Christmas fair, which is like in Nuremberg or Hamburg or somewhere like that, and it's massive. People fly in for that. Can you utilize off-season times here to do? I'm not saying we do that, but can you say, look, here's some ideas that are great, but they're during the peak tourist time when people are coming anyway. Are there times where we have room that the businesses are hurting? I mean, the ice cream place, Storm Brothers, is closed for months.
All those parking spaces at City Dock are empty all winter long. They might get a little bit busy on during the winter weekends, but rarely can you not find a spot at City Dock during the winter.
Parking is such a misnomer, because I have, with the exception of like 4th of July boat show.
Red herring is what you say, not misnomer.
Yeah, I mean, I've never had a real problem finding. I mean, I got to look. I mean, it's not like it's going to be in front of, I want to go to Tsunami and presto, there's a spot there. But I've never had a problem.
People want easy parking, and here it is, 102 degrees in February, and everyone's outside, and I found street parking without looking too hard. You can find parking. I think and I agree with you. You've brought me to your side. It's not a misnomer. It's a red herring, but it's
you've just got to look for
but
it.
I think
my trolleys would get people out of their cars at the top of Main Street, not at the bottom of Main Street. So we have 3 empty garages that sit empty all night long, 7 nights a week, and all weekend long. We need to get tourists into those garages, and then leave the other garages for locals where we know where to park, or the other spots for locals where we know to park.
Well, you look at the things that you mentioned about off season to help out. I mean, it's evolving there. You look, a perfect example would be you kick off with a light parade in the middle of December, morph it right into the grand illumination for West Street. Then you've got Midnight Madnesses that fall in thing. Right now, as we're recording this, we're in the middle of Restaurant Week. So there's a lot of places that will do things to, make it work.
Yeah.
So that's hey, smile for Tim. He's taking a picture. Cheese.
We need an Instagram account.
No, we don't. No, we don't. You know that Ferris wheel? I thought you were, A, I thought I was joking, and B, then I thought you were joking, and then now I'm sitting thinking, wow, okay, maybe I on Annapolis was prescient, back in 2009 when I started that. And bringing families down there, and just somewhat of a related but a little bit off, the piano down at the Market House.
That's brilliant.
And that was brought in by Ellie Tierney, who's running for Ward 1.
And I lifted it there. Can I tell you this? I'm a team player. I lifted it from the donation house all the way to downtown.
Now, if there's a piano tuner listening, like Phil Gerlich, if there's anyone who wants to do The City is Solid, they could use a little bit of a tune. But other than that, I play it every time I'm down there.
Public Works work to get it out there and everything else. And there's volunteers, I'm presuming, that they cover it in the rain.
We need more quirky things like that. We really do.
Yeah. Which is very cool. And actually, I saw a post today from Ellie Tierney, and she's got a little bit of an issue because there's a homeless guy that's very good at playing it that has now pretty much taken residence there with a tip bucket. That's awesome. And you know what though? And it's a hard position to be in.
Is he good? Is he good at it?
You rock it.
Then let him go. He's working for free with no benefits to provide us with some ambience downtown. Let him go.
I saw Martin O'Malley playing guitar with his guitar open there.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, I took a picture of him busking late in his term, and a whole bunch of newspapers.
I was going to say something tonight, but we want to get him on the podcast. So,
Hey, and real briefly, let's just talk about your competition. You're running against an establishment candidate in the primary at this point, even though he's not technically filed yet.
Senator.
And you've got a Republican mayor, which is sort of an anomaly in the office in Annapolis. So what do you think about your competition? Or their competition, I guess. I don't know how that...
I like being the underdog. I think it's great to be in that position, which is good for me. I'm going to have half the money those guys have, but I'm not going to run a campaign that's about that. It's going to be a grassroots campaign.
And if history has shown anything recently, is the outsider candidate actually does pretty well.
But I think that for John, it's a great contrast for me because he's been in the game for a long time and he's done a great job. But I'm about new ideas, so John will be a good man if you want more of the same, I'd say, and then I'll be a good guy if you want some new ideas. For Mike, and
he was the guy who was the change agent last time.
Yeah,
well, just by Providence, because he was Republican. He's going to sweep. His slogan was, "I'm going to sweep City Hall clean."
Right.
I think for Mike, he's got an Obama problem. So you can tell people that it's better as many times as you like, but if they don't feel like that, if it doesn't feel any different downtown, if it's not any faster to get a permit, then you can tell people it's good as much as you want, but if it doesn't feel that way, they're not going to believe you, And I think that's what happened in this last election.
Well, it's perception. That's what I mean. It's we talked about that with Eastport residents, is that you can tell them that crime is going down all you want.
But when the bullets are flying on the street,
right?
It doesn't make a difference.
So you can have Mayor Pantelides say, "Well, I'm streamlining this process." But if you're a business owner and you're trying to open your doors and you're blazing through money, then the perception. It doesn't matter if it's a week or 2 weeks shorter process because you're still going through your capital. So I get it.
Yeah. Interesting perspective. What else did we run on? You were running on business friendly, family.
Yep.
Business friendly, family friendly, and local friendly.
And I'm not running against Mike. I like Mike. I'm
no,
not
you
running
are.
Against.
Yeah, no, you guys are going to have to share the office.
Just
then.
running the run. I'm not running against John. John's a good man. He's been a great public servant. I'm just running for some new ideas, and I'm running because my kids go to school downtown. I actually run downtown. I'm at City Dock 3 mornings a week. I have businesses downtown. I have real estate downtown. I just want a cooler city, and there's some people don't want us to involve, and I think some people kind of fight against change, and I don't think they really love the city as much as I do. so I'm
that should be your slogan.
I'm not trying to get a job. I don't need a job. I don't have another political ambition after this. I just think that we have a great city, and there's a lot more we could do with it if someone just connected the dots.
Wow, that's awesome. So you're going to have the website up soon. You're going to have the Twitter up pretty soon. We were just telling off mic that you've got your campaign manager's got all those things.
Gavin for Annapolis is your Facebook page, correct?
Is it? Yes, I think so.
You on Facebook? You're not a social media guy, are you?
No, I don't do Facebook. That's why I really haven't gone there, because I needed someone to do it for me, because I wouldn't have done it justice. So
Good for you.
Scott's managing the Facebook right now, and then we should have the website up in the next few days.
My brother just quit Facebook a couple days ago, and he goes on and on about it like an ex-drinker. You just see, like, he just
actually, your Facebook page, Gavin, is Gavin Buckley for Mayor.
Thank you.
And you can search that on Facebook, and it has a lot about his platform. It'll have some more information there. The website is getting ready to launch soon, you said.
Yes.
And they will get on to the whole Twitter thing. I mean, he's got 627 people liking it and another 650 people following it. So that means that must be the mayor's friends that are following it.
And if you're following him there, you can follow us at the Maryland Crabs on Facebook. We have a page and we have a group. Both we post the shows to both of those, so you know what's coming up. You can find us at MD Crabs Podcast on Twitter. John is in Annapolis on Twitter. I'm Tim Hamilton 47 on Twitter. You can find John and I both on Facebook, and we'll friend anybody pretty much. Yep. We are on iTunes and Google Play, where you want to subscribe, and you want to give us the most star rating you possibly can, and a swell review would be awesome. Find us at themarylandcrabs.com or at themarylandcrabs.com, and we are everywhere.
That's it. And again, thank you to Brian Callahan for the space at 49 West. I'll say thank you to Gavin, man. You've got some really kick-ass restaurants. I mean, Metropolitan is one of my favorites, and I know on R&R we've been talking a lot about the restaurant week, and I'm like, I know we gave a couple gift cards out for that. This morning it was like, the lamb burger. Really, don't take that off, man. I'll be pissed. The lamb burger is really awesome.
Yeah, lemongrass. That's our favorite. I drive here with one of those insulated bags when I get to go.
But you've really done a good job changing up what we have. You are certainly a change agent. I imagine murals will be a little bit more prevalent under Gavin.
I look forward to the cable car along Main Street. That's going to be great.
Some great
shot
ideas.
Across the harbor.
all about family, all about locals, and bringing them back down to Annapolis and reinventing it.
Thank you.
Last things? Anything?
No, this has been great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I got lots of more ideas, but I had to shut up.
I want
next month.
You're parceling them out. I want to get you drunk and get some of these ideas. So in the meantime, we're going to have some more candidates coming on, and we're going to have some of our online debates that are going to be coming up, but we're still making plans for that. So stay tuned to Facebook and our webpage for all that. And I think we're going to be starting a email blast pretty soon, so we'll be able to get that out to everyone. So Gavin, again, thanks for coming on, and we're going to have you on again soon. This is always fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been the Maryland Crabs Podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them at all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.